Welcome to Mission to Inspire, where we share life experiences in our careers, personal lives, society, culture, religion, finance, family, and much more. Meet your host, Shola Ajibade, as she takes you on a ride to fuel your inspiration.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mission to Inspire. My name is Shola and I've got our guest here with me today. His name is Murray Morison. Maurice used to be a management consultant, but now he is the co-founder of Personal Aspirations with Dorothy, and they actually reach out to teachers who would like to explore a new career path. Because of what he does now, he currently lives partly in London and in Crete. Isn't that so great? Hi, Murray. You're welcome onto our show.
Well, thank you very much. This is our second go, isn't it? Because
it is.
Dorothy and I had a chat with you about 6 months ago, something like that. I think we were in Crete then when we did that one. Yes. So thank you for having me back on, Shola. It's good to have a second go.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to come back on our show. And this time you're actually talking to us about your love for writing books, because I know you're an author.
That's right, because I mentioned it last time, and you said that would be interesting to talk about. And I think there are a lot of people, maybe a lot listening to you, who have got a book or two inside them. So it's interesting to look at the process where you get from having the idea to actually getting a published book out. So, which I think is what we're talking about today.
Yes, definitely. So my first question to you, Murray, is, as an author, what is your number one tip to authors to be?
I think you let me have a preview of the questions before, and I thought about this, and I thought, in a way, I want to have a double answer to this, because there are maybe people listening to this who think, I want to write a book, I don't particularly want to write a novel. Mm-hmm. I've done both. I've written business books and I've written novels, and really the reasons are different for both. And I think if it's the first one, if you're doing something where you're writing about what you know about, then the number one tip is to make sure you know about it. In other words, to write from real experience. To have something ready to offer, so that I think it's very helpful for people when it's a distillation of your life experience or your business experience or whatever goes into a book. But if you're thinking there's a novel inside you, then I think the number one tip is to have a story. And I think you'll know when it's right, because you will sense the story knocking on the door, wanting to get out. Mm. You will have a real passion for trying to get your story out. And I know, my background was, I did sciences at A-level and I did social sciences at university, and then I taught for many years, and then I went into management consultancy, as you've said, Shola, and in none of that time did I really have the time or the energy to think about writing novels. But I'd always had an interest in stories. Stories would be going on in my head. Even at school, I would be thinking about things which would be like a fantasy story going on. And when I retired and moved out to Crete, some 10 years ago now, 10 to 12 years ago now, I suddenly had the chance to have time to devote to writing. And we were in a house at that time that was not the house we were going to move into. We were waiting for that to be completed. And so I didn't have much to do. So I decided to get up early in the morning and just write. And the story that was dying to get out was an image I'd had of children across periods of time. So one in ancient Egypt, one in ancient Greece, one in sort of medieval France, and right up to the present day, a schoolboy very much in a town very much like Horsham, which is where I was raised. because another tip as we're going past tips is write about what you know. In other words, I had to come up with a fictional town, but it's very difficult to completely make everything up. So it's good to anchor it in something.
Yeah.
And so this idea of telling the story to look at the way in which wisdom has flowed from ancient Egypt, where you just look at their monuments to see they were remarkable people, and then the same can be said of Greece in a different way, then into Rome, and then up into Europe via the Islamic civilization. It came up into Europe, and this flow of ideas that has gone from Egypt all the way up to the present time. I'm not a scholar that could write a scholarly book about that, but I could write a novel that would illustrate some of those points and also introduce the readers to some characters they may not know much about, which I would try to be faithful to. So the first book introduced Pythagoras. So at one point, my hero from now, this time, he links up with this Greek boy, and the Greek boy is the younger brother of Theano. And Theano came from Greece, and she married Pythagoras. She was much younger than him, but she married Pythagoras. And so brilliant was she. She may well have been a priestess at Delphi, but so brilliant was she that when he died, she took over his school. So I invented a younger brother for her, and that's who my character Rory meets up with back in time. And therefore I was able to talk a bit about Pythagoras and his school and how that went on, and was able to have some quite amusing conversations between Rory, the English boy, who'd never heard of Pythagoras, meeting this person he took for the gardener. So he has this conversation like that. So to answer your question, what tip? Have a story to tell. Have something that must be told. Otherwise, in a way, don't bother. I mean, I think it's important that it should be a story that needs to be told, not a story that think I just need to find a story to tell. There are an awful lot of Me Too books out there that just take a formula and apply it, which I don't think is adding much to the world, really.
Wow, that is so interesting. So we just need to have a story to tell. And then how do we go about telling the story? How do we become an author if we have that story?
Well, I think the way that you become an author is, I mean, there are two methods to become an author or to write a book. And one is called the seat of your pants method. And the other one is very much the planning method. Now, if you take somebody like Hilary Mantel, she just died a few weeks ago. Hilary Mantel, one of my favorite authors of all time, she did meticulous research to do the 3 books that she wrote about Thomas Cromwell and Henry VIII, that period of time. And she must have put literally years of study into preparing for that. She couldn't have just sat down and written that book.
That's true.
And indeed, scholars at university turned to her books to get insight into things because they recognized her as being an absolute expert in the field. One method is you plan, you do a spreadsheet, you do it on file cards, whatever, you work it all out beforehand. But a friend of mine who we were both writing together in Crete, his method was to think of the overall story. He was writing about Crete during the Second World War, and he went for a few key scenes, and he wrote these key scenes, and then he filled out the bits in between. And I have to say, what I did, I just initially, because I didn't have a clue really how to start, I just sat down and I started at the beginning with Rory sitting on the bed reading his comics with his cat Jester, and there's a knock on the door, and he thunders down the stairs and he opens the door, and there's a strange man there looking a little bit like Charlie Chaplin, who's collecting I can't remember precisely what he was doing now. He was collecting signatures or something, but I introduced him because I wanted in each of the 3 books of the trilogy that I was writing, to have somebody representing Mercury or Hermes. Right. You know, when you go to Piccadilly Circus, you've got the archer there. That's Mercury, and he's almost like the patron saint of storytellers, but he's also the trickster, and he's the messenger of the gods. And I wanted the story to open with something symbolic of that. And you have to get to the end of the story to find out a little bit more about who this person is. And it doesn't matter to me whether the readers get the reference or not. Because when Rory goes out to look for him, he's disappeared. So, you know, his experience is there was a man there, then he's gone. Yeah. And you get that a lot in mythology of certain of the gods appearing and disappearing. So, and I had that idea in my head, and I started, and then, you know, it went from there. And I did a whole sort of first version of the book. And then I had to rework it quite a bit. But that way I was firstly learning my craft, how to do it. And secondly, the story was being told through me. I mean, it's an absolutely real experience. When you start telling a story, the characters are in your head and they will feed you with information, or you'll get images. And I would go, at the time I was writing this, I would go for long walks and scenes would come to me. So that there's a scene, for example, where Rory is in his bedroom, but one of the characters, the Greek boy that he's in relationship with over time, is on board a ship, and the ship is in a storm. So I had Rory staggering around his bedroom. And that idea of doing that just came to me while walking. It just came as, I think a lot in images, so it just came as images. So my method is, you want to write a novel, just start.
Just start. Wow. It's more like writing a script.
Yeah, well, script writing is similar, and a lot of my writing is not descriptive. It's done through conversation.
Oh, okay. Wow, that is so interesting. So what type of novels do you enjoy writing, and why?
Well, my genre, if clearly, if I'm talking about young children, not young children, teenagers moving back and forth through time, then it's like a fantasy novel. It's like that doesn't happen in reality, not in the world we live in. Yeah. But if you say fantasy novel, then you're expecting wizards and goblins and ice princesses, and you know. And it's not that either. I tried to make the real bits of the story real. In other words, the bits that took place in England within the last whatever number of years were very much true to the England that you and I both know, or the southern England that you and I both know. So that bit was solid. And I also tried in describing ancient Egypt, because I have a character who's a trainee priestess in ancient Egypt, to do some research around that, to get that as accurate as I could in terms of the description. But as we don't know a heck of a lot about the life in temples in ancient Egypt, then I had to fill that in with my imagination. So, yeah, so I don't know if that answers the question, because I've forgotten what you asked.
Well, yeah, it does. It does answer my question. So, is your novel a little bit about fantasy? And then
what I didn't do, Shola, so I beg your pardon, what I didn't do, Shola, was to describe what my novels are in a category. So the category that I use to describe the novel is visionary fiction. And it's people who write it know what they're talking about. But in ordinary language, it's saying that you're writing a story where the spiritual aspects of things are real. In other words, you're living in a world where there are spiritual forces at play. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write the book that somebody reading it, that I would have liked to have found when I was a teenager or a young adult, to confirm what I knew inside, that these spiritual truths are real, and to affirm that. So that really all my books do that. And interestingly, it's often adults who pick them up, and it has most impact on them, because I think they sense that.
Right. That is so interesting. Visionary vision. Wow.
Visionary fiction. Visionary fiction.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That is so interesting. I've not heard of that before. I've heard about all of that categories, but not about this visionary fiction. I've heard about fiction on its own, but not the visionary one.
Well, you've probably heard of Kate Moss. I think her books, I don't know if she classifies them that way, other people do. And I would say C.S. Lewis as well, some of his writing falls into that category. I mean, some of it is, almost fairy tales, but some of it is his sort of science fiction ones were more visionary fiction.
More visionary, yeah. Yes, that's true. That's true. Kind of like Harry Potter.
Yeah, Harry Potter. Yes, Harry Potter would fit nicely into that.
Into that, yes, yeah. Thinking about it, it would fit into that. Wow, that is so interesting. So, why did you start writing novels?
Why did I start?
Yeah, because the type of novels you write are quite there. It's for a particular audience. It's something that I would pick. I like fictions, but I like visionary ones, like you've explained. Some aspects of it which is spiritual, cultural. I just like to learn about other things, and just trying to know how that came about, how to approach it if I witness it in future, or if I hear about it, at least I'll know that, okay, yes, I've read about this somewhere. Somebody has done this research and I've read about it through that person's research, and putting that into a novel.
Well, I can tell you how the book I've finished, but I probably need to copy edit it a bit, but I finished it, and but it's not been published yet.
Right.
This is a very interesting one because I've been very blessed in my life. I've met some really, really interesting people, and interesting in the sense that they are quite off the scale in terms of most ordinary people. One of them is living in Australia, and he has the most remarkable amount of knowledge of anybody I've ever come across.
Right.
And I came across some of his writing online, and I contacted him, and we got into a conversation. Over years, we got into a conversation. And one of the books he wrote is called Liebe Klang Glas. It's not a novel, it's a history.
Okay.
And he says it's the history of the Irish people, the true history of the Irish people. He calls it the history of the green race. And it's full of extraordinary stories, some about people that we know about in history, some about people we don't.
Yeah.
And because he just covers them in detail, this person was then, that person was then, I said to him once, I said, could I take some of those and do a novel around them? Because it was such an interesting idea. And he said to me, well, no, Murray, I can't let you do that. So I thought, that's fine. And as he said those words to me, I thought, I can write about you, in the sense that I could call him a man who knows everything. And there's somebody else in my life who I've come across. I've been to a couple of conferences he's run. And you can ask him pretty much any question on anything, whether it's advanced physics or space travel or medicine or occult things that go bump in the night, those sort of things. He will answer immediately and in some detail. Wow. And because I set up a conference for him in Crete, I had to work closely with him for a period, and I saw he was a man totally trustworthy. That's a whole other story to know why that is. So I knew these two people, and I've known other people as well, but these two are exceptional. And I thought, what is it like to be somebody like that when your knowledge is so vast that everybody else compared to you is pretty ignorant, or just doesn't know the way the world works. And so I developed a character, and then I went back in my past to somebody I was sweet on in my early 20s, and we've remained good friends ever since. We were we were very close for a time when we were living close to each other, and then we've remained in touch. And she was interesting because she was a evangelical Christian, a young evangelical Christian coming from quite a wealthy background. And she, believe it or not, was dating the chaplain to the Queen. So like, she and I were chatting about this. She was, you know, going out with the Queen's chaplain and umming and ahhing about whether she should marry him or not. And so we talked about that. She didn't end up marrying him, I have to say. And so I thought, what would happen if you take somebody, she was and is an absolutely lovely person, but if you take somebody who's got very narrow religious views, and they then meet somebody whose perspective is huge because they know everything, right? And that was the starting point for the story. And I had great fun with that. I mean, I really, really did enjoy doing that because we could follow her journey of understanding as she goes through, and also how somebody who knows everything is a threat to the political order of the day because they see right through what's going on in politics and you know, and science and so on. So I was able to play with that. So it becomes a bit of a thriller towards the end. And that one I didn't write for young adults. I wrote it for adults. For
adults, oh my goodness. That would be so interesting. I would like to read that book. I would really like to read this book when it's out.
Well, Shola, I will send you a copy when it's published, all right?
Please, yes.
You'll have to have me back on to talk about it.
Oh, definitely. We'll have a review of that book. When it's out, definitely. That book will be so interesting because, as you said, seeing two perspectives of two personalities, it's going to be so interesting. So I'm looking forward to reading the book and having you back on our show to talk about that book. Thank you so much for coming on. So, any advice for 2023?
Well, that's such an interesting question. You know, I'm a little bit older than you. I've been on this planet a little bit longer than you, but the last years have been the strangest that I think I've lived through. And I've been around long enough to look at our political masters and so on and be in awe of how remarkable they were. I can remember a number of prime ministers and ministers who were exceptional people of great stature and deeply impressive people from both you know, from both sides, both wings, and also in America as well. And now you look at the people that are ruling us and you think, you know, frankly, a group of sixth formers who were honest and true could probably do better, given the guidance from you know, that they would get from the civil service. So we're living in very strange times, and the whole issue around COVID has been very strange. And I think, I don't know if it's inspirational, but it's heartfelt, which is look really carefully at what's going on at the moment, because look beneath the surface of things. Don't just follow what you hear on the mainstream media, look outside it. Not looking necessarily for what are called conspiracy theories, but just broaden your outlook, because I think it's up to all of us now to make sure that this country that we love and cherish, which has such wonderful qualities, is taken through to its next stage of development. And I think there are threats around at the moment. There are threats to our freedom, to our how we get knowledge, what knowledge we're allowed to get, and so on. And you don't have to look hard to find people who are very credible, who can, you know, give you some guidance on this. So that, just look under things is my advice for 2023.
Look under things. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that's it. Look under things, broaden your outlook, look inward, look outward, broaden your outlook, look under things. That's Murray's advice for us for 2023. Thank you so much, Murray.
You did say, Shola, that if people wanted to actually get hold of my novels, how would they do so?
Yes, definitely.
I'll just give you the two titles of the ones that are in print. They're both available on Amazon. So the first one is called Time Sphere. That's the one about that touches on Pythagoras in ancient Egypt. And then the second one is called Time Not. And there's a whole story behind that, but that will have to be for another occasion. And my family name is spelt with one R and one S. You won't find me if you put two R's in it. So Morison, Murray Morison.
Murray Morison with one R.
One S.
Okay, right. So you've got these two books on Amazon at the moment, so we can actually purchase those books on Amazon.
And I think you can get Kindle copies as well.
Kindle
cheaper.
Copies. Okay.
Kindle and hardback. I mean, and paperback. Paperback.
All right. Okay. And they're titled Time Sphere and Time Not.
Time Not.
Yeah. Time Not.
That's it.
Okay. And Time Sphere. Is it spells S-E-E-R?
S-P-H-E-R-E. Sphere.
Oh.
Like a sphere. And the other one is a knot, just like tying a knot in a shoelace.
Knot. Okay. All right.
And sometimes when we meet, I'll tell you about the lady who died and came back to life and how she had a vision of a knot. But that'll have to be next time.
Is that in that novel then?
That gave me the idea for the book.
Oh my God.
I met the lady. She died, and then she had this vision in Hawaii after she had, she had a near-death experience, and she had this vision in the sky of a knot that had remarkable mathematical properties. But sadly, we're out of time, so you'll just have to read it.
I know, sadly. Anyway, we're going to have you back on to talk about your books, especially when you publish the new one that is coming out, which you're going to be sending me a copy.
That's a deal.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on our show. Pardon?
Happy New Year to you. Hope it goes well.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too, and Happy New Year to our viewers out there. So we've heard his advice. We've heard his timely advice for 2023. We need to look inward, look outward. We need to broaden our outlook on things. We need to look underneath. So we need to look properly, basically, before we do anything. That's his advice for 2023. And also, he's also told us how we can get his books on Amazon. So let's go on to Amazon and purchase his books. So I'm going to put the name of the book on the show. So you're going to see the name as they scroll on the book, and it will be in the description as well, and a link on how to purchase the books. So thank you so much for coming on our show, Murray.
Well, you're very welcome. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today on Mission to Inspire. Subscribe if you have not already done so. Like, comment, leave a message. Let's stay connected. Let's jointly inspire the world.